Micdup.
Micdup.
All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 93 of Highlights from Lowlifes. You might have expected to see Webby, Robbie, Marty, Terry Lee, maybe Jonesy, Teddy Bear, or even Big Juicy, but they couldn't be here. They're all making their way back to their homes from their road trip, Highlights from Lowlifes annual road trip. So you might be looking at this and saying, who the blank are these blankety blank guys? Well, we're the B team. I'm JC Penny. Next to me on my left is Chuck Hammy Arthur, and next to him is Carl the Babe Shanks, and we hope to see Alex Simon, the sports editor of SFGATE, soon. I expect to see him chime in. So as you may know, we are a group of senior baseball players, primarily from the Bay Area, and we played against each other for many years. Carl and I, since the early '90s, played together or against each other. And Chuck a little bit more recently, but a long time as well. And the Lowlifes got together for Zoom calls during the COVID era, and they started making up these top 5 lists, and that evolved into what micdup saw as a good opportunity for a podcast. So they made the big leap and offered us a platform, and through Mr. Landerman, we got to know the Almanac, a beer company of Alameda, California, one of the nation's finest craft brewers, and they have sponsored us, supply us with some beer every once in a while, and we love it. They have a great brewery in Alameda. I've been there a number of times recently, and it's enjoyable. Family-oriented place. Even has an outside area where pets are welcome, and it's just a great experience and good beer. So for tonight, our topic is the interview with Alex Simon, sports editor for SFGATE, and we will be talking about some of his more recent articles that he has had in SFGATE online, and we will talk about Alex because we've all known him a long time. In fact, before he was even thought of, I attended fantasy camp with his parents on their honeymoon. That was part of the end part of their honeymoon was the fantasy camp, and we've been friends ever since. Carl and I have an even closer connection to Alex because in the strike year of 1994, we attended a fantasy camp tournament in Cleveland, and I think we landed. When we landed, we heard the news that the strike had begun, so we couldn't get to Progressive Field. We couldn't do any of that, but we were going to play, and that didn't work out either. I think Carl played in the only game that was there that we got before it started raining. So the rest of the tournament was rained out. But Michael and Angie were there, uh, and so we got to see them. And there was a rain delay, and about 9 months later, we get Alex in 1995. so so that's our connection to him. And so anything to add there, Carl?
I think the only thing I have to add for that is, we got back from the first game that day, and it started raining right at the end of the game, and we were kind of wondering what was going to happen. And Mike and Angie were literally right next door to Gail and I, and that was when when we all said, "Well, I think we're going to try to maybe take a tour of the Indian Stadium, but we'll have to see what happens with that if we can get worked out and all. Until then, we'll just stay in and maybe watch a movie." Well, we know what
So,
happens.
so what you guys are saying is if the game wouldn't have got rained out, we might not be able to talk to Alex today.
It's possible, I suppose.
Yeah, might have been delayed a little bit. Oh my! So while we're sitting here waiting for Alex to get on, Chuck, you had some thoughts about his recent articles about Sutter Health Park and the A's. Why don't
Yeah.
you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, in on April 4th in 2024, Alex wrote an article about it was sort of from the player's perspective about the shortcomings of Sutter Health Park, um, as far as being a good place for major league games to take place. I've been going to that park watching Rivercats games since when it was called Rayleigh Field, when it first opened up, and the A's affiliate was playing there. Of course, now they're the Giants AAA affiliate, but we always really liked that stadium. It was great for a minor league park, but the players, as indicated in Alex's article, they were not real happy with the situation there. And I was hoping I could ask him some more questions about that, but the players talked about things like no shade and no restrooms in the bullpens out off right field, and that's pretty rough for major league, right? What do you got? 8 guys sitting out there baking in the heat,
Yeah,
no place to take a leak, nothing. That's certainly not what they're used to in major league ballparks. So I get that. Um, and I was, and this is something I wanted to ask Alex about. I was always told when that stadium was first built that it was designed for a second level, or for a potential future major league team to come to Sacramento. And in his article, one of the people from the River Cats organization said that that's not true. It was never designed for that. So that was something I wanted to talk to Alex about and see what he had heard about that, maybe from other people other than just the one guy that he interviewed. So um, they're also, one of the things that I wanted to ask Alex about was, from the press's standpoint, the press boxes are not really set up for multiple feeds from multiple radio stations and TV stations and so forth, and so everybody's all crammed in now, and you know he was wondering in his article about when somebody of international interest like Shohei Ohtani comes to that field to play, there's going to be affiliates from Japan who are going to want to televise that, right? And so, what are they going to do? How are they going to do that? Those are some good questions that need to be answered. The other thing I had heard, and this didn't appear in his article, but one of the things they were considering prior to when he wrote this article was going to all turf on the field, because they're going to have a minor league club and a major league club using the field almost continuously every day of the week. And they were worried about whether the natural grass would hold up. And I had read some things about the players saying, "Oh hell no, I'm not going to play on turf in 105-degree weather in Sacramento."
Well, it
And
adds 20 degrees or so.
yeah, yeah, and so I think that whole idea got um, dropped.
Yeah.
But I haven't been to the park recently. Have you, JC? I don't know how well the grass is holding up. Have you seen that?
Actually, I did. I did hear something about that too. There was a recent discussion, and on our mic'd up app here, uh, Bip Roberts has a podcast, and he just last week did his return to the podcast, and he's going to be doing it on a every 2 weeks basis. But he spent a lot of time talking about the turf at Sutter Health Park, and a lot of time talking about the stadium itself. That is, a single deck stadium, and it has a small mezzanine level, but that's it.
Yeah,
And most of them in the major leagues are 3 and 4 decks high, and that affects how the ballpark plays.
yeah,
He says
definitely.
it's not the same. It's not major league quality from that standpoint.
Well,
So
yeah, and some of the players mentioned that in the heat of the summer when it's real dry, um, baseballs are going to go flying out of that stadium, and they were saying they were thinking might see some 10 home run games.
mm,
I don't think that happened in 2024 though, did it?
So what's different than playing there or in Colorado? Of course, ball
Yeah,
flies
well, that's
there too.
it
So
does. Yeah, that's what they were comparing it to. Yeah,
I
that's
think
maybe
it's a
maybe
lot
they'll
of
get a humidor.
I think
yeah,
it's a lot of discussion about nothing. If all right, so if I'm the A's, I'm stuck, right? You,
Yeah,
you're stuck in a place. You've got to play somewhere, and this is where your home is. It's
yeah,
like growing up in the Bay Area. I remember Willie Mays saying, "Hey, Candlestick is ours. We got to figure out how to make it our a bonus for us that nobody else wants to play there, but
right.
we
yeah.
like." Well, I
Hmm.
think it's the same thing with the field up there with Sutter Home Field is that it it's it gives the A's should be trying to figure out a way to use all the intricacies of the playing
To
field
their
to
advantage.
their
Yeah,
advantage.
yeah.
And instead of hearing an outfielder complain that it's got a 25-foot warning track instead of a 14-foot track, come on, you're the
Yeah,
major league guys,
Yeah,
figure it out.
yeah. I was kind of thinking that as I was reading Alex's article, because a lot of the complaints were from players and even former players and things like that. I'm thinking,
Yeah,
oh man, you deal with it, right?
yeah,
But
right.
that's I would love to know what Alex thinks about that aspect. But
yeah.
I
he,
think he's
if,
going
if
to join us in a couple of minutes. I
yeah,
sent him
Okay.
a text. He says yes, he's planning on joining. So yeah, I think he's just trying to get a couple of things finished up.
All
yeah,
right.
I'm,
All
I'm
right.
sure. He
Well,
he did one other article in June 6th of this year, just very recently, about the park, and one of the things that is a shortcoming, and that is the size of the warning track. I
yeah,
don't know if you guys read that one, but that's an interesting one that a lot of major league players are used to a standardized, was it 15-foot wide warning track, and they know the feel when they're running back on a high fly ball. They know the difference between grass and dirt, and so they can judge their distance before they hit the wall. And
Right,
Sutter Health Parks is more like 25 feet, and it screws
right.
them up, and it actually impacted the game here recently, apparently.
But the point that I was making about that was an A's player that complained about that warning track, and it's
yeah,
their
Yeah,
home field.
Yeah, right. If anybody
Make
should
it
be
into
used to
an
it,
There's
you.
advantage
Alex.
for you, and
Yeah,
then you can then it can be the opposing players having to show up for a game or two there. You're playing 81 games here. Make it to your
yeah,
advantage.
yeah,
I wouldn't complain about it. I'd figure out a way to make that an advantage.
yeah. Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
So we've already given you the introduction, and Carl and I have known you a long time, and also Hammy has known you, but uh, we were in the discussion about Sutter Health Park, and the complaints, and Carl brings up the point that it is your home field for 3 years. You should make it an advantage. And the Giants did that with Candlestick Park. They made it. They made it their advantage. Roger Craig told them, "You're not complaining about this park anymore. We don't want to hear it. We want to have their opposing players coming in and being uncomfortable there, but we should feel comfortable." What do you have to say? Your mic, your
Your
mic.
mic's hooked off. Yeah, there you
Sorry
go.
about that. And clearly, as you can tell, I'm going through some technical difficulties and making sure that I'm up to speed here. But usually it's the other way around with on the average age of this product here that it's the young people who would know. But no, I've been the one struggling. I think that is a move that, in theory, is 100% correct. But it kind of strips away the reality and kind of takes away the human element. When you're a big league ball player, you have expectations of what the big leagues are going to be like. And I know you guys, for the most part, and especially you, JC, because you're right down the road, you guys have all been to Sacramento before, and it is a lovely minor league stadium. But there's
Yeah,
nothing about being there and kind of feeling the environment that screams, this is the big leagues. And I think what's kind of happened is it's a lot easier for a visiting team to come in and just kind of recognize, like, yeah, this is really weird. We can complain about it because we don't have to be here all the time, but we'll get in, get out, get our series over with. But for the A's, I think, the reality has started to set in that all of these things about the ballpark that are suboptimal aren't going away. And you have to it's a little different dealing with it in a way that changes your environment. I had written about, the fact that the manager can't see down the left field line to watch what's happening with a play and allows, a play that the A's could have challenged and changed the outcome of the game to go unchallenged. And they would have been correct had they challenged it. Uh, there's so many things. Obviously, Luis Severino has said, as a pitcher, he's used to kind of hanging out outside of the dugout and down in the clubhouse. Well, they can't get to the clubhouse in between innings when he's not pitching because they have no access to it. They have to just hang out in the dugout. It's kind of, spring training esque in that way. But, in being there for the 2 days, I could totally see how, if you're a big leaguer used to kind of the stakes of the big leagues, it's just stripped away and gone when you're
yeah.
in that ballpark.
You
Yeah.
know, some of it seems like it could be correctable. For example, a couple of the guys in your article talked about the no shade and no restrooms in the bullpens. It seems like that's something that they could resolve
From
relatively quick.
Yeah, and they've done some things. The initial bullpens that were there in the minors have been upgraded.
Hmm.
They've built a bathroom for one, which feels like a basic need, but they do have it now. Um, they clearly spent a lot of money to do the best that they could, but there's only so much you can do you can
Yeah,
only shine a gem so much to change it into a different gem, right? Like they
Fix
have a
the
minor league
fix.
stadium, and unless they were willing to put in hundreds of millions of dollars, it was always going to be a minor league stadium.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, one
And that's
fortunate.
what I was going to ask you was I had heard when that stadium was first built, because we used to go to River Cats games all the time, and us guys actually played there a few times.
I
For
distinctly remember my dad playing there.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, I remember you were just a little dude back then. Yeah, so, but I had heard that they had designed that thing for a second level, anticipating a future major league team in Sacramento. But in one of your more recent articles, you said that's you were told differently by a Rivercats executive. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I that wasn't actually in one of my articles, and it doesn't, in walking around the facility, it seems pretty clear there might be capability of adding a second level.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of time and effort and especially money it would take to do that probably isn't worth it for a stay that the A's don't plan on making more than 3 or 4 years. Now, if
Yeah.
this was something that, they knew they had to be here for 7 years, maybe that would be more worthwhile.
Yeah.
We've myself and a colleague, as well as a photographer, we had 2 reporters and a photographer spend a couple of days up there talking. And one of the big takeaways is a lot of the people who bought season tickets kind of feel like they've been duped a little bit. And they feel like the A's told everybody this is going to be the most exclusive seat in baseball. They were charging really high prices, and everybody was like, don't worry, even if you can't go, you'll be able to sell it at this price point. And on the Wednesday that we went, it was the highest attended game of the week, but it was still one of the non-sellouts that they've had. They've only had 2 sellouts the whole year.
Yeah.
But on top of that, tickets on the Wednesday we were there, you could buy them at the time the gates open on the lawn for $3 on the resale market.
Wow.
And so the idea that if you're a season ticket holder who paid $75 a seat to get the best seats, and then you're seeing those same seats sell for $20 on the resale, why are you going to want to come back next year?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see whether people do or not. Wow.
Well, the other side is, does that mean that the Sacramento market isn't really large enough to support a major league team in the first place?
I think it's a fair question. One of the things that a lot of people told us is that, the A's not embracing Sacramento, even just by literally calling themselves the Sacramento A's, has been a massive negative just in terms of local perception. It doesn't feel like the team wants to embrace the city, so why should the city embrace the team?
Agreed.
I agree.
It's
Yeah.
it's a really difficult thing. A lot of the people who we talked to, even the season ticket holders, said they've been excited to see big league baseball in their town, right? Aaron Judge came and hit 2 home runs on a Saturday. That's something Sacramento probably never dreamed of having happen in town. But this feels entirely temporary, and it doesn't feel as if even the home team wants to embrace the home. So at that point, it's hard for the locals to feel like there were several people who we talked to who said things would be different if they just said they were the Sacramento A's, even if that was a few years only in that regard. And it would feel like it was a team in Sacramento rather than just this kind of nomadic team that the A's are being right now.
Quality of play in the field would help too, right?
And they were 20-16 at one point this year. They've looked
That's
like
true.
they have good hitting, but they haven't pitched worth a lick for about a month now, and it's showing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have Weber who's in.
Alex, I'd like to know your thoughts about whether or not the A's will ever leave Sacramento. I know there's troubles in Vegas with getting things done. What about Sacramento building a better stadium? Thoughts?
Thank you, Rob. I would say to this one, there are certainly going to be complications in Vegas, but it does seem as if everything is on track. There has been reports there. Now, I haven't done any reporting about Vegas specifically, but I've seen reports from the local outlets that it sounds like there's a groundbreaking ceremony happening in about 12 days on the last Monday of June. Um, if that happens as it's supposed to, that certainly at least indicates that things are at least hitting the bare minimum benchmarks that the A's have said they want to hit. Financially, it's going to be difficult. Labor costs have gone up, material costs have gone up in the current presidential administration's tariffs, and specifically to John Fisher, who is, supposed to be the person funding a lot of the stadium in Vegas. There has been some financial struggles for his main company in Gap. And if that's the thing that's supposed to be the bulwark of his funding, it certainly looks like there's trouble. He's been seeking additional people to buy portions of the team to help fund things, and I'm curious how that will go. But everything about the current situation at least indicates that they're pretty invested in making Vegas work however they have to. And so it's not a situation where I see Sacramento keeping this team. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm Sacramento, why would I want this team? Why would I want this owner
Yeah,
with the
well,
way that
that's the
this owner has
problem.
treated his city before and is looking to treat the city he's currently in by not acknowledging that they're there? I think if I'm Sacramento, the risk here is that things look so bad for this team that really are to blame on the organization, not the city, but people aren't going to separate the two. Kind of like how they didn't separate the two in Oakland. Oakland fans have said we would support the heck out of a baseball team here if it were not John Fisher's ace.
Right.
If somebody else bought the team and invested in the city and invested in the team, we would be here.
Yeah,
But
all the signs sell, sell, sell. Yeah.
right, like they clearly are still wanting to support the team, but it's another city with this ownership group kind
You
of
know,
showing the problems with it.
Alex, I don't know if this makes sense to you or not, but living 400 miles away from you guys, I live in Southern California, so I'm in Orange County. The news I hear about the A's and the Las Vegas stadium versus probably what you guys are hearing is the the Tropicana was blown up and torn down. It's cleared. They're going to have a groundbreaking ceremony. Everything's moving forward. The success they've had with the Aces, with the Golden Knights, with the Raiders, with and you know with I think there's a minor league football team there now. Everything is going great, and they're bringing tons of people into town to see these sporting events. Now, maybe they're not all A's fans or Raiders fans or Aces fans or Golden Knight fans, but they're showing up and they're participating in the Vegas market and they're coming to the games and they're full. I mean, they're 80, 90% full
So I
every
think
one.
I do think though that there is a very big difference in Las Vegas between the support that the Golden Knights and the Aces get, which are extremely local fan bases and are usually filled. I've been to Aces games covering the WNBA. I have not been to a Knights game, but know plenty of people who have. They have a very strong local fan base. Their fans are Vegas based. The building for the vast majority of those games are Vegas fans. The Raiders have been a completely different story. There have been several Raider games where the visiting team fans outnumber Raider fans in the building.
Yeah,
And
destination there.
it's become kind of a nouveau rich travel thing for the visiting fans to be able to come through and basically make your road trip of the season to follow your team to Vegas. I mean, famously, they hosted the Vikings, and I think it was like 85 to 90% purple in the stands.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, that's bad.
you know, if you're a Minnesota Vikings, if you're Minnesotans and it's November and you have a chance to go to Las Vegas and also see your football team, you're going to
Yeah,
take it. Like
yeah,
that. That's clearly what's happened. It's also seemingly what the A's are counting on in Vegas in that way. They want to be a destination where even if they don't have the same type of local support for the team, everybody already has fan bases that they can come support their team when they come through town. Which, by the way, even in the tiny Sacramento stadium, that's already happening. The Chicago Cubs were the opening series, and even on opening night, it was maybe the most heavily A's crowd. But for nights 2 and 3, it was half Cubs fans. When the Mets came through, it was half Mets fans. People told me when the Yankees came through, it was more than half Yankee fans. Even in this Twins series, there was seemingly a healthy dose. It was not more Twins fans, but it was a healthy dose of Minnesotans. You know, everybody that I talk to cannot wait for the Giants to come to town, but they all think it's going to be way more Giants fans than A's fans in the building for that game.
yeah.
So
I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I think it's mostly because the hardcore A's fans are so upset with the ownership and the team. They feel betrayed. And so it's difficult for them to spend their money and their time to go support that when they feel like they got cheated on and walked away from in the first place. Right?
and I certainly think that sentiment's there for those who are choosing to stay away. And even the ones who are choosing to go, you know, there is an act of rebellion you can have by going and just keeping the reminder there. You know, we at SFGATE are going to have a story coming up tomorrow on Thursday, June 12th, about a fan who's been going behind their pregame show set that they have inside the ballpark wearing a cell shirt. And then security personnel, anytime that person gets on the show, walk and stand in front of them so it blocks the cell shirt from being on TV. And you know, this person's been doing it basically all season. They did it on a Thursday day game and it kind of blew up on social media. Everybody saw it. So it's just become kind of a clown show in a way of all the things that you thought you could avoid when you left Oakland. And if anything, it almost is exacerbating the problem in a
I
way.
would I would think if I were the A's, I would be working on a ground up swell with the 51 fans and the other, high school, college, and UNLV baseball on getting involved in that whole stadium and transitioning into becoming a base for the A's in Vegas, if that's where they end up at. Just because if you have that as a local ground base, then you have opportunities where it could grow into something more. And then it's supported by the travelers coming in and everything else. When you get 81 home games, it's a whole lot different than having 8 to 9 football games
Yeah.
where you can
Eh,
bring people in to do that. But that's why I said, you look at the Aces and you look at the Golden Knights,
yeah,
build the local following, and that's a lot of local people that are going to those games supporting that. So if the A's are smart, they'll find a way to build that community involvement before they ever get to Vegas. And if not, it could be the same thing in Vegas that they have in Sacramento.
I do think though that is a lot easier said than done, and it becomes harder. The one thing, you know, the Aces are a little bit of a caveat, but they've also, to what I'm about to say. But the reason why the Knights are so embraced in Vegas is that that is something that is Vegas's already. They are an expansion team that started in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
The Raiders have been a nomadic team themselves over the years, and obviously came from Oakland via Los Angeles via Oakland to Las Vegas. Now the A's are about to do Philly to KC to Oakland to Sacramento to Vegas. You know, this is just the latest stop in the A's destinations. It's not a team that the city feels on its own. The Aces are also in that vein, but they've kind of, the WNBA was so small when they went there that it kind of was both an expansion team while not being one. And Vegas got to kind of embrace them as its own, really as they were getting the Knights too. So those two teams were the two local teams that were first. But the Raiders and the A's, and if an NBA team comes in, the NBA team are all kind of coming late to the party when Vegas has already established its fan bases, right? They have UNLV sports. They now have had the Knights. They now have had the
Well,
Aces.
again, with the baseball team, I remember when the A's came to Oakland, and
Right.
I'm of that age. So I can remember that it really took them getting rolling that 69 to 70 season and then going on the run of the 3 World Series in a row really solidified them. So if they were to be able to pull that kind of a move again when they move to, well, while they're there either in Sacramento or when they move to Las Vegas, it's going to create the groundswell because that's what happened in Oakland. If they had not won, if they had been the Giants of the 70s, I don't know that it would have stayed in Oakland for 50 years.
Yeah. We better move on to one of my favorite segments, and that's what you drinking. Um, we are sponsored by Almanac, like I mentioned before, and on the podcast we all try to drink uh, different Almanac beers. Sometimes we end up with three of the same, four of the same, but we do sample. And so for what you're drinking, I'm gonna be having a Bunny Hill IPA. This is a West Coast IPA, and by the name, as you might think, it's a beginner IPA. It's a nice beer and very tasty from Almanac. Chuck, what you drinking?
I'm drinking the Seaside West Coast IPA. It's become one of my favorites and sells very well, as I understand it. And it says here on the can that it is deep, relaxed, and my favorite, vast. So drink that. That's good stuff.
Carl?
Well, I'm like Chuck. I'm drinking the Seaside IPA. Um, Again, living down in Southern California, trying to find a Northern California craft beer is not the easiest thing to do. I found two Almanac beers at my local Bevmo, and this looked like the most tasty one. So I have to agree. It may change my mind on IPAs. Normally, I find them too fruity and too acidic. This is very drinkable. This is good stuff.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Teddy Bear chimed in. He's Brent Tetlow. He's headed back, and so he chimed in with his what you drinking.
Teddy Bear here. What you drinking? Well, we looked all around the East Coast and didn't find any of the wonderful flavors that Almanac provides us with, so I'm having one of my last Yinglings in the Nashville airport before I hop on the plane and get closer to Almanac and Alameda, where we can enjoy them once again. Have a great show, boys.
All right. Teddy Bear.
Brent's clearly riding on the wing of the aircraft.
Yeah, it sounded pretty loud there.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody has to be on the back of the plane to make sure it actually gets moving, right? Somebody's got to gauge the wind.
So
There you go.
As he asked, Alex, are you partaking of anything?
I do not, unfortunately. It is a end of a long workday, and with the technical difficulties, I do not. However, the last time I had an Almanac beer, I had the Sandlot. How can you not enjoy anything about the Sandlot? So
There you go. There you go. So, Babe, you had some insight into some of the articles that Alex has written recently about the Giants. You have some questions for him?
I guess the question I would have is, how surprised were you at them DFAing Lamont Wade? Late night Lamont built himself up a pretty good local following there, but it's Major League Baseball. You got to hit above the Mendoza line eventually, and if it ain't happening.
yeah, I mean, Buster Posey, a week before they actually did it, was on KNBR and didn't. To me, it wasn't very subtle about how much he was kind of hinting that something was coming. He was on KNBR and said, it was great that Lamont had a good game right before we talked the day before, but we need more. We just simply need more out of first base. There's no question about it. He was still on the roster for about 5 more games after Buster said that, but it seems pretty obvious that at that point, the writing was on the wall that if Lamont didn't, have a 10-for-9 weekend in Miami or do something ridiculous, it was nearing the very end of the rope, and the rope then ended a few days later in that regard. Now, I think it's been most impressive to make a move like that, and the several moves that he made. It wasn't like he just DFA'd Lamont Wade. They DFA'd 2 players. They sent another back down. They kind of have changed over their roster a little bit on the offensive side, and immediately they haven't necessarily been hitting the cover off the ball, but they've won every game since. So we're talking in the middle of their game on Wednesday against the Rockies, but up until this point, they've won all 6 games since they added Dom Smith to the roster to replace Lamont. So it's certainly, you know, if you want to see a message sent and a message received, we've seen it right now from the Giants in the message that Buster gave them, for sure.
Interesting.
Where do you think the future holds for some of their brighter prospects that are now in Sacramento? And will we see them on the major league club before the end of the year?
Buster has opened the window in his comments a little more to Bryce Eldridge being on the team this year. And he was injured. He had a kind of a rough spring. and then got injured. So he got a late start to his minor league season. But when he went to Richmond, he tore the cover off the ball in what's supposed to be a pretty tough league to hit in. So he earned it his way to Sacramento. And you have to wonder if the Giants will get tempted in a month from now, if he's settled in at the AAA level, has adjusted, that instead of trading for a big first baseman, why don't we just call up the one that is the future anyway and give him the run now? I think it's going to be hard to see him for several months, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see him for several weeks, if that makes sense as a difference.
Yeah.
Well, also the way Dom Smith is playing at first base, maybe that prolongs, Bryce staying in Sacramento and getting more work.
It's certainly again, if you viewed the Dom Smith move as maybe patching up a hole with scotch tape, it certainly helped for the week. I don't think it's the thing that turns this team from a October contender to an October winner. And I think that's got to be the thought process going forward, is where are we weakest and where can we make the biggest impact to try to become a contender to win the World Series? Because I think that this team has earned that shift in mindset already.
So with JC and I both being former backstops, let's talk a minute about Patrick Bailey. Here's another guy, defensive wise, is top tier, but should he be continuing to be a switch hitter? Maybe just work on batting left-handed only. What are you hearing?
Yeah, obviously at the moment, Bailey was just placed on the injured list today with a neck spasm. I think it sounds as if it's not something they feel is too serious, but they didn't really want to risk going with one catcher for 3 to 4 games in a row. So better they pushed it as far back as you could and said this has been a thing for a minute. So that said, he has struggled, perhaps in the same way that they've tried to find pockets to give their big guys a break. Is this a chance to get him settled down, let him just breathe? For as much as he's had moments at the plate where he's been a very reliable hitter, he has had these massive slumps the last 2 full seasons towards the end of the year, and he's now started this year in that massive slump. If you're the Giants, you're hoping maybe he got it out of the system early and we'll see the hitter that we've seen for several months in a row to start the last 2 years, really, since he got called up in 23.
Do you think there's any big shadow of Buster Posey hanging over him that he's got to try to play to that level now that Buster's involved in the day-to-day operations also?
I don't know if that's impacting Patrick as much as it was impacting Joey Bart and fan perception. And however much that seeps through, I don't think that's maybe. I haven't seen anybody ask Patrick about it and seen what he said. So I shouldn't outright rule it out, but it doesn't seem to be the case. And Buster in his comments has done nothing but support Patrick through the offensive struggles and said, the number one job Patrick has is to take care of the starting pitching staff. And there's nobody questioning how impactful he's been defensively. He's been the best defensive catcher in baseball. You could make a very easy argument for him. So I think we look at the offense. It's definitely painful at times to watch him at the plate, but the Giants have surely felt like it's worth the trade-off for what he does with this pitching staff, and it's hard to blame him.
And talking about popular players, and certainly he is a popular player, but probably one of the most popular players that we've had for a long time is Yastrzemski. Mike Yastrzemski is he's just a fan favorite, and he's been in a slump, although he did come through recently, but and they brought Dan Johnson in, DJ, to be a right fielder, center fielder. He could be anything. So what's your thought about his future and the rest of the outfield? Apparently, Jung Hoo Lee's been struggling through some neck issues as well. What's your thoughts on that?
I think the Giants have gotten exactly what they would have wanted out of two of the three outfielders, and really out of Yaz for most of the season. Jungkook's certainly struggled and come back to earth a little bit relative to how hot he started the year, but he's been the exact player that they've wanted, a guy who's a constant contact threat, attacks the offensive side, and really is a dangerous hitter, even if it's not for home run power, but just a dangerous at bat every time, as well as playing excellent defense in center field. Elliot Ramos has been the best hitter on the team for a month and change now since the start of May. He's once again surged in a way that puts him in all-star conversations, and he's been fantastic. I think Yaz started so hot that it was bound to be a little bit of a slump back to a little closer to the player we've known him to be for the most part. But there's something that he brings both in presence in the outfield as a defender and just in the lineup where he is giving you professional at bats time in and time out that on top of all of the kind of the things in the clubhouse that it seems that Buster values from Mike specifically, there's so many things about his play that just seems to settle a team, and he never feels like the moment's too big for him. He never looks lost at the plate. He certainly can have bad at bats, but he seems to be the type that the Giants have clearly, probably tried to trade him and Lamont in the offseason. But it seems like Yaz is somebody they were pretty committed to giving him a go, and he earned a lot more playing time through his play to start the year. Now we'll have to just see what happens. They've tried to platoon away from him a little more as he struggled. We'll see if they commit to him being the full-time right fielder against right-handed pitching. I think they'll do a little less of it, but I think he's got a roster spot, and it's not the outfield where they're going to find opportunities for guys that aren't him, basically.
Okay.
So
All right.
he was a finalist last year for the Gold Glove in right field. Do you think he's got a chance to overtake Tatis at all?
The arm that Fernando Tatis Jr. has and can throw guys out from right field is so remarkable that it'll be tough. Look, the Gold Glove has kind of become this weird award that is, I think, fairly voted on through metrics as well as through the media and even through fan vote. So without watching every single inning of every single right fielder, it's tough to know exactly how the vote's going to go. But I certainly think Yaz will have a shot to be in the conversation because he's just that good defensively. You probably need like 5 highlight plays without any truly awful plays to stand out. And I don't know if I'd say he's had those yet, but it certainly feels like he's been exactly what the Giants and again, what the Giants need out of a right fielder is so much more than what other teams need out of right fielders to handle Oracle Park and all the nooks and crannies of that big right field wall. I don't think Yaz is a problem spot on this roster right now. The way that first base is, the way that at least offensively catcher is. I think when you look at what this Giants roster has, there's one spot where you just need Willie Adames at shortstop to hit much better than he's been. Matt Chapman's injury comes at a terrible time because he was just starting to heat up offensively. But they've gotten decent production out of second base, right field. They've gotten really good production out of left field and center field. And it's really first base where you can feel like this team has a massive upgrade to try to go find, because you're also not going to take Wilmer Flores' bat out of the DH spot with how he's been all year. So
Okay. We're gonna move on, and it's time for me to talk a little bit about the Mic'd Up app, and that's what you're on now. The little microphone button at the bottom of your screen. If you're watching, feel free to punch it and leave us a comment or a question for any of us or for Alex. It's why we do this. So please do that. Also, I wanted to mention, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, Bips Blips. Bip Roberts is back. He's doing a show every 2 weeks. He's due for a show next week on Wednesday, I believe, and he does a great show talking all things sports, mostly baseball. His return show was all about Oakland and the Oakland A's, and a little bit of about Pete Rose being in. He's a big Pete Rose fan, and mentioned how happy he was that Pete got reinstated more or less and is now eligible for the Hall of Fame. So, but Bip is a great guy. He has passion about Oakland and about the A's leaving, and a really interesting discussion. So look for Bip Roberts, Bip's Blips in your upcoming mic'd up app and watch it. Uh, Now, I want to move on with Alex. Uh, Near and dear to my heart is your article about your week as a San Francisco Giant, uh, because you and I were on the same team, and we had a great time with your cousin, your brother, and your mom and dad, and my son, all on the same team. Teddy Bear also was there. We had a great group. Alex Clark. There were a lot of guys uh, who made up a nice team, and we had fun. And by the way, we won the championship. So uh, and so uh, tell us a little bit about what it was like to be there with the family and to experience that in your eyes, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, look, the fantasy camp world, if you will, especially the Giants one. I mean, this is how so many of you guys are connected to each other, and it's where I basically grew up. It's going with my parents to these fantasy camps, to the tournaments in San Diego and in Lodi, and all the places that we've gone over the years. So for me to actually get to be on the field, I was not the athlete of the two Simon boys in that regard. That was certainly my brother, and he proved it in the week of camp. It took me quite a bit to even physically get in shape. I had suffered a pretty major knee injury in the summer before going to camp, and was still rehabbing it as I got to, a few weeks even before. I was still doing rehab sessions before starting up, but I was able to make it through the week, kind of through all of that. Everybody else picked up their aches and pains and jammed thumbs or anything like that, as you would during camp. But the thing for me that it didn't, winning is great, and it's funny. You mentioned JC. I'm staring directly at our championship trophy in the background here for me, underneath the TV, in a very prominent spot for us,
Yeah.
no less. But the for me, it was never about the winning as much as it was just getting to do it and being able to, as I kind of wrote about, like this community has meant so much to us. But like the thing that we put in the headline and I wrote about in the story is like, how many people can say that they struck out a batter pitching to their mom, right? Like there's so many things about getting to do that with the family that, you know, I wouldn't necessarily call it the highest quality of baseball, but that's not what you're doing this for. You're doing this to be with the people you're with. And so it's been cool. And I mean, for me, it's rekindled my joy within playing baseball that I had lost for the most part since really the little league days and right after little league. I didn't think I would be playing baseball at 30 right now, but I am playing in the leagues, and getting to spend Father's Day like I will on Sunday, going out with my dad to play baseball is a pretty neat thing to say you're doing. So I, it's been everything that I hoped for. Getting to write about it was really awesome, and I'm glad it touched so many people in the community because they all shaped who I was in my childhood in that way, for sure.
Yeah. So that's the trophy he's talking about.
Glad to see it
Uh,
wasn't far for you.
yeah, no. But and Carl and I were teammates in January uh, uh, on that. We didn't do quite as well as we did, Alex.
Well, you didn't
But
have my brother as the ringer. Clearly,
no,
that's the key.
that's true. That's
That's
true.
true.
Yeah. So Carl, why don't you just vamp about that a bit
Well,
about the camp
we had a
experience?
great time there. I mean, it was for me. It was a last minute decision to go, and so I reached out to Bill Lasky, who runs the camp, and said, "Hey, I'm thinking of going," and he said, "Well, that's great. he said, let me email you the details on it. And before I got the email from Bill, Teddy Bear is texting me going, oh, I hear you're going to camp. I hear
Yeah.
you. And then I get an email from the dude from Keith. Keith says, hey, you're going to play with us when you're going to camp? And then I got another text message from JC that said the same thing. I'm like, wait a second. I haven't even gotten the details from the guy putting the camp on. I got 3 guys that I know that are all going, wait, you're coming? So it was really cool. It made me feel automatically like, okay, that I'm part of this. I'm already in, and I got a chance to play ball with Keith and JC and Teddy Bear, and for the week, and I had a ball, man. Just being able to hang out with my friends, guys I've known for many, many years. But yeah, we played a little bit of ball and we made some plays and we got
Yeah.
some hits and we got some that weren't hits. I mean, JC tattooed the ball all week long. And every time I hit the ball hard, there was somebody standing in front of it. I know exactly what Lamont Wade felt like. Because every time I hit the ball hard, somebody was there. So, but I had a
Adam
great
ball hitter.
Yeah. So, so Hammy, you've done a lot of camps. You did some Henderson camps and old school, and our tournament in Glendale, where we had Clubby and the whole thing. That was through West Coast Fantasy Baseball, which Alex is now involved in, and we've all been involved in. What is your take on uh, the league and the tournaments?
Well, I just think it's a great deal of fun, and I've made some great friends over the years. And in fact, I started in the league. JC, you invited me to come out and watch you guys play at Rayleigh Field, which is now the Sutter Health Park. And I went out there after baseball practice because I coach Babe Ruth baseball too, and I went out there and you guys were playing, and I think it was either Webby or Captain Steve that popped up out of the dugout and said, "Hey man, you want to play?" I said, "Hell
It
yeah!"
was Weber.
But
It
yeah,
was Weber because you were wearing
I wear
his
his
number 1
jersey.
jersey.
Yeah, and so that's where it started for me, and God, that was so much fun, and I am so happy that day happened because man, I just love playing with you guys. So it's a lot of fun. But
Alex, any final word about the league? I think that's something that our our listeners most of them know about and enjoy. But anything, your thoughts?
I've had a blast getting to be a pool player so far. My work schedule unfortunately makes it hard for me to join a team, which would be the most fun. But it's tough to beat hopping in and joining with a lot of people that have known me since basically I was born. But playing with my dad in that way, that's pretty neat. And to go around the Bay Area and do it like we do is pretty fun. But I will say I'll be playing in San Diego in about 10 days from now, and I'm very much looking forward to that first tournament at that place. So that should
awesome.
be a good
All
time.
right, we will see you.
Also, if you ever need a 55-mile-an-hour fastball that's batting practice level, but can be located in the strike zone, that's what I got for you.
I
Take it or
got
leave
10
it.
miles an hour too
Hey
fast.
Alex, my son who's about your age is going to be playing with us down in San Diego too. So I'm looking forward to introducing you to him, and
Excellent.
that'll be a lot
Yeah.
of fun. Yeah.
I'm sure it should be a great time and play. I played in Lodi for the first time last year because they still wouldn't let us play unless you had done camp. But getting
Yeah.
to play in some of the things we grew up with as kids definitely made it more special than just getting to go and do it because of growing up there. So absolutely.
Well, we've about exhausted our time here, and so we're going to close the show. But we've appreciated everybody listening in. Oh, I had one more comment I want to play in from Teddy Bear. This is for you, Alex.
Hey, Teddy Bear here from the Nashville airport, waiting for my connection home. Hey, Alex, do you think that Buster is having a lot to do with the new acquisitions to the Giants team this year. And do you think Bo Mel is consulting him on lineup positions?
I think the modern baseball means that you're always checking in. But yeah, I would suspect Buster had a pretty big role to play in getting Justin Verlander on this team and choosing who they in signing Willie Adames. That sounds like it was Buster's move. And even if he struggled on the field, he's clearly changed the culture in the clubhouse. So I would suspect that Buster is not dictating the lineup to Bob Melvin, but they are talking about it. Sure. That's modern baseball in that way.
Well, great. On that note, we'll close the show and say goodbye. Appreciate y'all listening in, and this is the end.
JC, one last thing.
Oh, go ahead.
For everybody out there, hey, thanks for putting up with us. Hopefully we pass the audition, being the B team, and we're not automatically DFA'd or sent down tomorrow.
All right.